As anticipation builds for the fourth Beatles Anthology, a newly unearthed 1995 interview with George Harrison has appeared online, offering rare insight into the making of the first installment in the series. In the conversation, the so-called philosophical Beatle reflected on the ambitious scope of Anthology 1, a 60-track retrospective that included Free as a Bird, the Beatles' first new recording in 25 years. Harrison explained how he, Paul McCartney, and Ringo Starr had delved deep into the band's past, tracing their journey back to their earliest days as the Quarrymen. He recalled to bassist Mo Foster that before their rise at Abbey Road, the young band had self-funded a crude studio session in Liverpool, where they cut That'll Be the Day. He described it as a direct-to-disc recording made for the sheer thrill of hearing ourselves on record, noting that Anthology 1 effectively retraced their path from the very beginning to where it all ended. The collection pulled together an extraordinary array of outtakes and rarities, even a live cover of Chuck Berry's Roll Over Beethoven, capturing every stage of the Beatles' evolution. But as Harrison explained, the deeper they dug into their past, the more challenges they faced. Many early tapes had been recorded in mono, and the only surviving copies were often the original masters, with most alternate takes discarded long before anyone imagined their future fame. The trio also revisited Abbey Road Studios, combing through archive reels that included the band's Decca audition tapes, the same ones that led to their infamous rejection. Harrison chuckled as he remembered that the label had opted to sign Brian Poole and the Tremolos instead, and how their manager, Brian Epstein, was told that guitar groups were going out of style. He noted wryly that such advice likely ranked among the worst misjudgments in music history. Harrison went on to reflect fondly on Abbey Road itself, describing it as a great room and recalling their first session there in June 1962, when Pete Best was still their drummer. That day, they recorded the first version of Love Me Do. A few months later, the band returned to redo the song, this time with Ringo Starr behind the kit. Though producer George Martin, unaware of the lineup change, had already hired a session drummer. Harrison remembered the mix-up with amusement, noting that the version without Ringo ended up being released, while the earlier one featuring Bess never saw daylight until Anthology finally included it. The session, however, wasn't without tension. Around that time, Harrison had been attacked by angry Liverpool locals who were furious about Best's dismissal. He later joked that he showed up at Abbey Road with a black eye, while fans outside shouted, "Get Ringo out! Ringo never! Pete Best, forever!" He also remembered how grueling the recording had been, with the group playing through countless takes, using heavy, high-action guitar strings that left their fingers aching by the 20th attempt. Among the highlights of the Anthology series were two new Beatles tracks, Free as a Bird and Real Love. Both originated from John Lennon demos provided by Yoko Ono, and their completion marked the first time the remaining trio had collaborated on music since 1970. During the sessions, McCartney often remarked that he could feel Lennon's spirit guiding them in the studio, a sentiment that deepened the emotional weight of the project. For fans, hearing new Beatles music a quarter-century after the band's breakup was monumental. For Harrison, though, the most meaningful part wasn't the recordings themselves, but the renewed sense of camaraderie among the surviving members. He reflected that the true joy of the Anthology experience lay in finding friendship again after all those turbulent years, a rare moment of peace after decades of distance. Lennon, for his part, had once expressed the view that each of the Beatles ultimately thrived in their own right after the breakup, even if it took McCartney a few attempts to rediscover his footing as a solo artist.